welcome to another KeepsakeCrafts.net video. In a recent issue of Polymer Cafe magazine, I had an article showing you how you could make these pens. And this video is a bonus supplement to that article showing you how you can make these little holders that will match your pens. You'll be using many of the same techniques that I showed you in the article, but I thought you'd just like to see it happen. So the first thing I had you do was mix two colors, navy blue and turnip, with equal amounts of pearl to get these pretty blue and pink colors. Then I had you take those two colors and make a Skinner blend, and you would have ended up with something like this. Now when you make your pen, you will have leftover blend next. You want to grab a wad of scrap clay somewhere around the size of a golf ball, about 1.25 inches around. And you're just going to use an acrylic roller to roll that down, send it through your pasta machine several times. It does need to be nice and conditioned, but the color doesn't matter at all. And what you'll end up with is some shade of gray, just a ball of clay. The next thing we're going to do is cover this ball with some of our Skinner blend. Now here's a tip for you. If you don't have a lot left, first of all, roll it out on the thinnest setting on your pasta machine. And if it still doesn't seem like enough, what you can do is roll out another scrap of clay on the thinnest setting on your pasta machine, layer the two, so layer your thin blend over your thin scrap, and run those both through the pasta machine one more time, and that will basically double your surface area. And then you can choose whichever part of your blend you like. You may notice on these two, this one's got more of the purple, this one's got more of the blue. Whatever you like. And then I'm just going to roughly cover this, and you can use a craft blade to just kind of cut out some of it. It should all be covered, but it doesn't all have to be perfectly neat. And then just roll that in your hands until all the seams are smoothed out. And if there are any air bubbles, just poke those with your knife and then roll it again to smooth it out. Now if there's a section that you don't care for, that can go on the bottom. So you're going to set your ball of scrap clay covered with your blend on your flat work surface and just use your palm to press it down into somewhat of a dome shape. Any air bubbles, just poke them, flatten them out. Don't worry about texture from your skin. We're going to texture this in a minute. So you want it a bit of an oval. Don't make it too flat, but don't make it too high. It should be somewhere around 3/4 inch thick. That will be thick enough that it will have weight so that your pen won't topple it over, and it will have enough depth for your pen to go into. So now the next thing is to decide how you want your pen to sit in the holder. This one I pushed in at an angle, so it's kind of going off at a jaunty angle. If you decide to do that, you have to put the bulk of the clay underneath where the pen is going to be angled. In other words, I couldn't have put it like this because it just would topple it right over. And that's why this one's probably on the small side. I wouldn't make it any smaller than this. Or you can have your pen straight up and down. And it can be centered or off to the side or wherever you like. So I think I'm going to do another one off to the side. So you just take your completed pen and push it in as far down as you can. And then the final step for our base before we decorate is to use a flexible texture sheet, just like you use to texture your pen, but it can be any texture you want. And I'm just going to press it along the sides, and then over the top, down the other side, and then on the ends. And this doesn't have to be super neat. You just want a texture on here. It hides your fingerprints. But we're going to put a fair amount of decoration on here, so you don't need a super precise texture. Now I kind of squashed my thing out of shape here, so I'm just going to Try to reshape it a little bit. And then one more time, we'll just get our pen hole in there. And now the next step is to decorate. So to decorate our pen base, we're going to use the exact same things that we use to decorate our pen, vines and leaves and flowers. And you can just roll out some of your green clay, or like I suggested in the tutorial in the magazine, you can also use a piece of your green Skinner blend. And then you just start draping your vines on your base, making loops here and there, being careful, of course, not to cover up the hole. And you can make as many or as few vines as looks good to you. You don't have to cover every inch of the surface because remember we're going to add leaves and flowers as well. So then once you're satisfied with your vines, you can bring in your leaves, and these are the leaves I taught how to make in the article. If you don't have access to the magazine article, these are just a basic leaf cane. You can look it up online. There's lots of tutorials out there how to make polymer clay leaf canes. And I'm just going to put them on here in groups of 3, leaving space in between each one for my flowers. Now the nice thing about doing the base is that you can kind of curl and shape the leaves, whereas on a pen that's going to be picked up and handled, you sort of wanted to leave them more flat to the pen so they wouldn't catch things. But on this, I'm going to have them a little bit more 3D. And you can do more if you like. I just think this is a balanced amount for the space that we're filling. But you could certainly fill it with flowers if you'd like to. And here are a couple of the flowers I taught you to make in the tutorial, and it's really just a Skinner roll. I took some color from our original Skinner blend, mixed it with pearl to lighten it, and then made a blend with solid pearl. And that's all this is, and these are just round slices. And here's 2 of them, and I thought I would show you something I didn't explain in the magazine tutorial, and that's how to layer these together into a flower. And it's not complicated, but there's one little trick I figured out. So you lay these together, they're going to be spiraling around to a 6-petal flower. So you get your 4th one on. Now what you want is when you put the 5th one on, you want it to just touch the edge of the 1st one. Can you see that? And then what you do to get the last one in so they all overlap is you use your blade to lift up the first few. And then you can tuck in that last petal, and now they're all spiraled around. So we'll put these on our base, right over our leaves. And then it's time to add our rhinestones. And here's a great tip that Iris Misley over at Polyform Products shared for positioning rhinestones. She suggested a skewer stick, but I thought a toothpick would work fine. You get yourself a little bit of clay, like a pea-sized ball of clay, form it into a bit of a cone with a pointy tip, and put that over your skewer or toothpick. And now you have a wonderful tool for picking up your crystals and placing them, and you can just kind of slide it off. I thought that was just brilliant. Rather than buying special tools to pick up rhinestones, we have everything we need right here. And then the final step is to, these are, by the way, these are 3mm Swarovski crystal hot fix crystals. I like to take a ball tool and press that rhinestone in, and you can see how it brings the petals up slightly curved. I think that looks really nice. I think it just looks great rather than having it like this flat on the top. And you use a ball tool so that you don't mar the edges of your flower. And there you have it. You can double check, make sure your pen still fits, and then it's time to bake. Now this is pretty thick, about 3/4 of an inch thick, If you're using Prima Sculpey, it's a ½ hour per 1/4 inch. That means this will need to bake for about an hour and a half at 275 degrees. So I hope you've enjoyed this project. If you'd like to learn how to make the pen that matches your holder, check out Polymer Cafe magazine. And if you like this video, please make sure you've subscribed to this YouTube channel so you'll see more like it. Also check out my blog, keepsakecrafts.net, where I have lots of creative ideas and inspiration. Up on the screen are a couple more polymer clay tutorials you may enjoy. Thanks for watching. Happy creating. Bye-bye.